Hello, everyone, and welcome. As you saw, this session is being recorded. My name is Dr. Christina Bodemer, and I will be the moderator for this ADEIL conference session. And I just want to thank you for joining us. And this is the presentation, See Me, See My Story. And I ask that you please welcome our presenter, Dr. Renee Just.
Thank you so much. And thank you for accepting my presentation. And I'm thrilled to be able to share with all of you. So let me do that. Excellent. So See Me, See My Story is a really cool evolution of how this came about. So really the couple of things I would like to chat about is a little bit about me, to give you an idea of how I got here, our online classroom and a conundrum that I'm sure that I'm not alone in facing. Then we're going to chat a little bit about islands and movies and then outcomes. And see, islands and movies, you're questioning if you're in the right session. Just stay tuned. So a little bit about me. Before coming to higher education, I spent about 20 years in corporate America. The common thread in my practice was training and development, recruitment and retention. I left corporate America to start a consulting practice. And in my consulting, I work with small business owners and entrepreneurs, building lean teams, developing leaders. My sweet spot is companies $10 million in revenue and under. I have a PhD in organizational psychology, and I have an EDD in learning and leadership. My master's is also organizational psychology. Currently, I am the department chair of academic programs and associate professor of leadership at Renee University. And Renee University is in Gainesville, Georgia, and it's northeast Georgia at the foothills of the mountain range. And I pride myself on some of my volunteer work. Love me some puppies and kitties. So I'm at the Humane Society, Ronald McDonald House, and the Food Bank. So that's kind of a 50,000 foot level of my background and where I'm coming from, and kind of part of my journey of coming into higher education. And I try to use my corporate experience and my consulting when I bring case studies into the classroom, but I also try to use it as a means to solve problems. We're all faced with a variety of ages. Online students can clearly be anywhere from a traditional age up through as old as you want to learn. So that in itself adds a layer of complexity to our online classroom. So, I use this picture because it's kind of like what's seen and what's not seen. And on the top is where we are with our students and what we see of them. And it's underneath the water and in their lives that we don't often get the luxury of seeing, especially in an online environment. So many students enroll in online programs due to family obligations, a demanding job, their selected major, if it's not convenient geographically where they are. And sometimes it's simply an attempt to balance life's obligations. In my many years of teaching online, students share what's most difficult and what they find to be demotivating in the classroom, which, as we know, that leads to them checking the proverbial box. So some of the things that they've shared is that it's really text heavy, it's not engaging, and the instruction is passive. They've also shared that when they feel the most isolated is when there's not any content that's connecting them to their classmates, coupled with the fact that they feel this also when their life is really stressful, and then they start to shut everything out. So clearly that part we cannot control, the shutting things out in life being difficult. However, the way we teach, we can adapt. And I think that we've all found throughout the years, especially the last couple of years, that we've, even those of us who have been in the online realm for quite some time, have had to kind of step back and punt and readapt, because the fatigue is very real. So I've actually started to share and add a check-in discussion, and my students seem to appreciate that, and they kind of call it an adult timeout. It's just a space. It's kind of a little left-hand turn from the curricula, and they get to kind of share what's happening. So not to divert us. So let's talk just a little bit about isolation. So the isolation and social connectedness. Research shows that an online classroom or programs can be isolating, and the lack of basic human connection has been known to impact emotional psyche as well as student grades. Some of our students may be home alone. They may be working and attending classes full time. They may have families or aging parents to tend to. And so they're attending the program. At the end of a long day, they're logging in and doing the things that we're asking them to do. And in the back of their mind, they're also saying, what about me? Like, where's my outlet? So I briefly mentioned checking that proverbial box. So when students fall into an emotional or mental slump, we see them literally checking the box, showing up, doing what's required. You know, they may look at our rubric and say, okay, if I want to get this grade, I just have to do this, no more, no less. Sometimes they're in our class because it's required of their degree plan. Other times they're in our classes because it's an elective and they think that sounds pretty cool. But one thing I think we can all agree on is that engagement is key. So, you know, as a professional, we eloquently craft our elevator pitch in a 30 to 60 second synopsis. And in 60 seconds, we're able to share the 50,000 foot level overview of our current position and career, or what we're trying, where we're going. So now imagine, so it takes us 60 seconds to encapsulate our careers. Imagine telling your life story in 6 minutes. So this is something that my students do. And this is where I get to see their story and really see them. So I found a way to engage students in my creativity and innovation class by creating an assignment, asking them to tell a story of their lives. So they tell a story by creating a movie. So the catch is, it's not a day in the life movie. It's not walking around with their iPhones and doing a movie. And I woke up and here's my dirty room, or whatever the case may be. They have to tell a story of their life up until the current point. They cannot narrate the movie, and nor can they use large text boxes like some of us have seen in presentations where the slide has 150 words on it. They can't use any of that. And yes, you know, I've gotten comments, and if it's a live Zoom session, they look at me like I have completely lost my mind. But one of the things that they don't know at this point yet, and that we all know, is, you know, music tells a story on its own. So what they do is they create their 6-minute movie, and they set the tone and the mood by using a minimum of 5 to 6 musical transitions throughout. On average, students use 7. And they have used everything from the Beach Boys to rap to country to pop to their own cultural music to Broadway, you name it. And so while normally I work to change up my curriculum a bit to ensure that it's relevant and shake it up, I have been facilitating this particular exercise for a number of years now, and I continue to do so because of the impact. At the onset, students think this is going to be an easy assignment. After all, how hard can it be? Slap a couple of pictures together and a movie, add some favorite songs, piece of cake, done. Not at all. And time again, I've actually never had a student say to me, wow, Dr. Just, that was like the easiest assignment in my entire academic journey. On average, it takes a student about 20 hours to complete this movie. See, when they start compiling all their pictures, because oftentimes they don't have them all, so they're going back to family. They stop, they look at the pictures, they have their own little moments of reflection. They have conversations. So if this is a traditional age student, they may have roommates. If this is an adult living alone, they may talk to their friends. They may talk to their spouses. And they share what was happening at the time of that picture to their friends or whomever they're with. And then all of a sudden they come up with so many pictures and they put it together and realize it's like 10 or 15 minutes, and they try to cull it down. And they struggle, and they go through this entire process, strategically, innovative, and emotionally through, what do I take out that is less important than another picture? So they go on this entire journey. And now they cull it down, and then they scour through all of the possible musical choices. And well, literally, there are millions. So they put their movie together. And one thing I can say is that they don't just stick to a particular genre. They tend to be kind of all over the board with genres, which is a really cool insight into who they are. Because they start understanding, once they reflect and they look at all these pictures, they start understanding the power that music has, and they're looking for that tone. And I've had very deep, dark tones in some of them, or some start out, Beach Boys, 60s, 70s, hip hop, and then turns dark and then comes bright again. So what they do is they post a link to their video for the entire class to review. And I ask that they review 2 to 3 videos from their classmates and share something that they've learned about their classmate. So this entire process is a lesson in creativity, reflection, progression, and the art of storytelling. This is an assignment that students struggle with. For that student who is methodical, they have a difficult time with this because it's a little too abstract. And it's also the assignment that they love the most. Well, once it's finished, they love it. And I have found that students end with a true sense of accomplishment, and they're always proud of their story. Some are emotional, some insightful. Others have helped me to truly make sense of the student who shows up in my class. They have shared, my gosh, births to deaths, to marriages, to vacations, to athletic accomplishments, academic accomplishments, life's tragedies, situations of abuse, pride in overcoming hurdles. Some have shared their pride in some sort of a recovery process and victorious moments. And I can share with you that this was particularly helpful. I had a student who one-on-one in a safe conversation was simply just brilliant and creative and had wonderful ideas. And I couldn't quite put the pieces of the puzzle together as when it came to her interactions with her classmates. And then I watched her movie. And it was obvious early on that there was an abusive situation in her life. That gave me a tremendous insight, helped me to work with her. But one of the biggest things for all of these students is their ability to learn one about themselves, gain perspective on their abilities and their own strength, and gain perspective on their classmates. So the outcomes, the transformation that I've seen truly is overwhelming. This assignment helps them to come out of their shell. It shows their personality, the good, the bad, the ugly of their life. And it allows their classmates to see past the exterior. So I started out in the very beginning with the iceberg, because on the top is what we see. It's what their classmates see, because they open the window like this much. Doing this exercise and seeing everybody else's story, all of a sudden, like the window is wide open. And their willingness is more present, and their engagement skyrockets, because they're starting to feel connections, because they've learned different aspects about their classmates. And let's face it, when you understand somebody's story, it humanizes everybody, and it serves as a reminder that we're all human. We all have experiences, things and stuff, and we may feel different than we look. You know, the proverbial "don't judge a book by its cover." One of the outcomes that I look on this particular exercise is placed in my creativity, innovation, and strategy class. And I teach this class for students to understand that creativity is one avenue, innovation is another, and strategy can integrate all of them. And strategy is not always a number crunching, boring topic. That strategy comes into play everywhere. So I look at that as an outcome, and I also look at their ability to reflect and strategically craft a plan going forward. I have found this to be an amazing tool for engagement, for my students to become more present. And if they take this class early on in their curriculum, there's a difference of how they interact in the next classes that they take. So that is a little bit of my experience. And I would like to thank you again for allowing me to be here and to share my experience. And I would ask if there are any questions. And if not, I have another plan. So, but I would welcome any questions or thoughts. None?
Hi, I have a question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed the presentation and this idea that you presented. So it seems like the assignment that you spoke of fit into the goals of the course, and so you know, I think it filled and fulfilled a goal, fulfilled an objective or of some kind. But I'm wondering, how might faculty incorporate a similar activity in a course that isn't about innovation or creativity or something similar to the course you were teaching? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, excellent question. So the interesting part is that I tie it back into strategy, and I added strategy to this class as a part of the curriculum, because I think it's important for students to understand how strategy fits multiple places. It's for me, it's also like ethics. Ethics fits in just about all of our curriculum. Strategy fits. It's critical thinking. So I guess it's what your goal is. I don't know what you teach, Cheryl. So what's your area? So I am like leadership, entrepreneurship, organizational behavior.
So for example, I teach in a PhD in management program, and I teach at Walden University, and our courses are prepared for us, like many, online endeavors. So we don't have the flexibility to necessarily go in and create new assignments. So that's our situation. But I guess my question is more along the lines of, this is really a fantastic opportunity of incorporating opportunities to encourage diversity, equity, inclusion, and in particular belonging. And so I'm just wondering, regardless of the content area or the major, how do you have any suggestions on how we could incorporate this particular type of activity, and maybe on a smaller scale, in any course or in any program, without taking away from the stated course outcomes, because at the end of the day, we still have to fulfill specific course outcomes, but your activity speaks to so many different needs of our students and engagement and so on and so forth.
Yes, it does. So how I began incorporating this was I picked an outcome that had the most flexibility and the most gray area, and I incorporated it there.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm working from 4 outcomes, and I picked the one that is the most ambiguous, the one that is truly open for interpretation. And I made my own interpretation of it. So that's where I would say to start, is look at your outcomes and which one of them has the most kind of like, well, what does that really mean? Because some of our outcomes we look at, it's like, okay, that could be interpreted 1,000 different ways. So I would say start there. I think management has a lot of applications for this, and they could create a movie telling a story. And it wouldn't necessarily be their life story, but it could be a story of their progression in management and barriers or hurdles. Or if in the management course, you're talking about leaders and a story about leaders throughout their career at different places. I think that the movie component is what really brings the students together, and it really is what improves the engagement, because they get to see each other's story. So if they're looking at leadership, then what's a good example? What's a bad example? What are your experiences? Where were you shut out? And they talk about the good and the bad, because let's face it, none of us have had, well, I can't speak for anybody. I will speak for me and everybody that I know. I've not had like this beautiful hallmark career trajectory. And we've all faced adversity at one point or another. And I'll go back to the old adage that, I remember when I was 16 looking for a job, and I couldn't get a job because I didn't have experience, but I didn't have experience because nobody would give me a job. So I would just have them create a movie about hurdles, or pick a management topic or behavior in organizations. And on that, they could, instead of family photos, clearly they could go to magazines, if anybody gets them. That's how old I am. Or art to show ups and downs and victories in that career, again, setting the tone with music, and the down music is going to really draw your eye to what was going on at that point.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is definitely giving me something to think about. I even think that in our situation, it could be incorporated into a week one discussion, or even a cafe. We have cat class cafes, so I think there's lots of opportunity to create an assignment that meets a particular goal, but also simply as an activity to encourage inclusion and belonging. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl, let me ask you a question. Is your program at Weldon, is it lockstep?
If you mean, do students take courses pretty much in a given sequence, then yes, for the most part it is.
Okay. And so in that case, I recommend getting it in as early in their program as you can.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. Did you have anything else to add, Dr. Just?
So I was going to ask if any of the participants, and I really thank Cheryl for sharing and asking her questions, like where do you see this fitting in? You know, I teach leadership, organizational behavior, and entrepreneurship, and anything that falls under those. But where might this be applicable for you? Because it certainly is not relegated to a creativity and innovation and strategy class. And what are some other ideas that maybe you could share where you see it fitting in? And if not, that's okay. I don't want to make it put him in the spot. Try it somewhere. Think about it. You know, let it roll around in your mind. Where can it fit in? How can it fit in? And yes, I understand that. You know, the adjuncts that work for me, their curriculum, I write the curriculum, and they teach what I write. I don't have an adjunct teach this because this is very specific. But how can you incorporate it? Because I think that this is the message through a video that incorporates reflection and the ability to see progression is very powerful.
Okay, fabulous. Well, thank you, Dr. Jess, for your presentation, and thank you to each of you for attending. Please be sure to complete the conference evaluation. I just posted it in the chat, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the ADEIL conference. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.